There's a reason why Japanese men are consistently among the best dressed in the world. And today I break down the principles behind that and how you can apply them to upgrade your personal style. First of all, appearance is a form of self-respect. As you may have noticed, Japan has resisted the casualization of society much more successfully than we have done in the West. These days in the West, we put a lot of focus on comfort. But in Japan, on the other hand, the average person would not dare to leave their house in their Lululemon yoga pants or in their sweatpants, unless they are going to the gym, of course. I don't want to turn this into a big discussion about what was better in the past, but I think most of us can agree we tended to dress better and we tended to take more pride in our appearance. And these days, you have people going to school in their tracksuits, in their sweatpants, and we generally don't really care that much anymore about how we present ourselves. But in Japan, which is generally a little bit more conservative, they have much higher standards in this regard, and they really want to look presentable. Which is why Yasuto Kamoshita said in an interview, everyone wants to dress better than their friends. So what could we do as an action step? Well, I think that we could start to take our appearance more seriously again. Of course, without being overly obsessive about it, but I do think that we should take pride again in how we present ourselves to the world, which of course, it doesn't have to mean that we all need to wear a suit, but we should be presentable in our own personal way. The next reason is that Japanese men are not afraid to experiment and to break some rules along the way. You may have noticed that when you look at a lot of Japanese style, it's very eclectic. So they take inspiration from many different styles and they mix and match quite a lot of different levels of formality. And there's a reason for that, because Japanese style over the years has been influenced by a lot of different inspirations. So they were heavily influenced by American style, especially the classic Ivy style and Western style, but they also took a lot of inspiration from British and Italian tailoring, as well as workwear, streetwear, and military wear as well. And when you take all of these different inspirations, you get a very unique and eclectic sense of style. One of the best examples for this would be Shuhei Nishiguchi. He has a pretty unique style and he blends a lot of different levels of formalities, colors, patterns, and texture. And even though many of us probably wouldn't think about combining items like this together, he always does so successfully. But you will notice that he doesn't just randomly combine and mix and match items together. There's actually a method to his madness. Which brings me to the next principle, which is that Japanese deeply understand the fundamentals of style. So that would be the right fit, for example. It would be the color science and how to combine different colors, different styles, and different patterns and textures. Because if we go back to the example of Shuhei Nishiguchi, one of the main reasons why his outfits actually work is the fact that his fit is on point. He never wears items that are too tight or too wide for his body type, but they all fit him perfectly. And then also the way he combines the colors, he makes sure that they are not too saturated, that they are not too shiny. You can tell that he deeply understands the fundamentals, and that's why all of his outfits always look great, even though they can be very eclectic at times. And that's a pattern that you see with a lot of Japanese men. They know exactly what works for them and they avoid items and styles that don't look good on them. So what action could you take? Well, you could start to learn the fundamentals of men's style. And there are great resources for that. For example, here on YouTube, a couple of accounts that I highly recommend would be Justin Kwon, who has an excellent channel. Then, of course, Brian Sakawa from He Spoke Style and Luke Hodges. If you just follow those three accounts and you're going to learn the fundamentals from them, your style is going to drastically improve. This video is sponsored by Particle For Men. As we get older, skincare becomes an important part of looking put together. You want to keep your skin hydrated, support it after shaving, and take care of the little things you start noticing over time. That's where Particle Face Cream comes in. It's a single 6-in-1 cream designed specifically for men's skin, covering hydration, post-shave care, and common aging concerns all in one step. It absorbs quickly, doesn't feel greasy, and is meant for guys who want something straightforward rather than a multi-step routine. Plus, Particle For Men also offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it without any risk. So if you're looking to simplify your skincare, you can check it out via the link below and use my code LUCAS20 for 20% off. Number 4 would be the fact that the Japanese have a thriving menswear community. And I'm referring here primarily to print media and online publications. You have magazines like Popeye, Men's Club, or Men's X, and many, many more. And even though the style that they cover is very different, all of them regularly educate their readers on how to combine certain items and how to learn the fundamentals. Because I was curious, I bought a couple of these magazines myself, and I must say that the information in there, even though I don't read Japanese, if you just look at the images and how they combine certain items and how they teach you to wear which kind of trousers with which kind of jacket, it's all solid advice, to be honest. And even though it may not be the main reason why Japanese dress so well, it still helps if you have a good education space like this in your country. Because in Germany, for example, where I'm from, if your parents didn't teach you how to dress well, you're going to have a very hard time finding good information. Because in the end, you only have these very commercial publications and a lot of misinformation that's going around. So the fact that from a young age, any Japanese can just walk into a kiosk and buy a couple of really good style magazines, I think that's definitely helpful in developing their unique style. So as an action item, it actually goes back to my previous tip that you have to educate yourself about men's style. And for that, of course, you could buy certain books, you could join a style forum, or you could also follow certain YouTubers like the ones that I mentioned before. Because even though some people say that you either have style or you don't, in the end, it's still a skill that can be learned. So all you have to do is learn the basics of it, experiment a little bit yourself, and you're good to go. Another reason why the Japanese always look so stylish is simply their body shape. Japan is one of the least obese nations in the world, and even though it's an uncomfortable truth, it's still true that clothes simply look better on slim body types. And that's one of the major reasons why Japanese men always look so stylish. Because when you're slim like them, not only do the clothes look better, but it's also much easier to find clothes that actually fit you. I don't want to body shame anyone, but I mean, this video is still about why Japanese are so stylish, and I didn't want to skip over this point, because I do think it's an important reason of why they always look so stylish. And probably one of the most important secrets behind Japanese style is that they have such a thriving menswear industry with a big focus on craftsmanship. Because even though most people only know Uniqlo from Japan, Japan has hundreds of amazing brands across all different types of styles. For example, for the Ivy style, you have brands like Kamakura, which makes some classic Oxford cloth button-down shirts, for example. Then, of course, Japanese denim is valued all across the world. Japanese tailors and shoemakers are some of the best in the world. And then you also have a big focus on military reproductions from brands like Buzz Rixson, for example. And even though the average Japanese might not be interested or willing to spend $300 or $400 on a pair of jeans, it still helps to have such a large local menswear industry, because in the end, you get so much variety and you get items at many different price points. If we go back to Germany again as an example, we don't really have a big menswear industry. There's hardly any interesting brands coming out of Germany, even though we are 88 million people. And if you compare it to a country like Sweden, which is only 10 million people, surprisingly, Sweden still has a lot more interesting menswear brands. And even though this is a little bit of a chicken and egg situation, it still helps that they have such a thriving industry there. Because, for example, in Berlin, the capital of Germany, it's actually surprisingly difficult to find good quality clothes. Most of them have to be imported from the UK or from Italy. We don't really have a big local menswear industry, which of course is completely different in Japan. And it helps to explain why they have such an amazing style. Because Japanese really value craftsmanship, and they get it with the local brands that they have at home. And last but not least is the concept of Wabi-Sabi, which roughly means the beauty of imperfection. And when we apply this to menswear, this relates to the patina that clothes naturally develop over time. And this worn-in look, it makes your outfits look more personal. It makes them look more real, because if everything is pristine and new, it can just sometimes look a little bit too perfect. So even though it sounds contradicting, a tiny bit of imperfection actually makes the outfit look more interesting. And in that sense, there's a little bit of overlap between this concept and the Italian concept of sprezzatura, which means to be effortlessly elegant, because you want to look well-dressed and elegant, but you also don't want to look like you obsess over your outfits. And one of the ways you can achieve this is by adding items that have a nice patina and a worn-in look, which is one of the reasons why I always recommend secondhand shopping on my channel. Because when you buy clothes secondhand, oftentimes you get some really interesting styles that are not common anymore. And on top of that, you get this natural, beautiful, worn-in look. And of course, as a bonus, you can save a ton of money. My entire outerwear wardrobe, for example, has been bought secondhand, and some of the items have some really nice subtle fading, which just makes them look a little bit more personal and relaxed. Gentlemen, Those were 7 reasons why Japanese men are some of the best dressed men on the planet. If you have anything to add, please let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and see you next time.